Hello and welcome to ICA's Diversity and Inclusion series, where we spotlight the compliance industry's leading diversity champions making a difference in the industry and society at large. I'm joined by Deborah O'Connor, a compliance professional with over 25 years' experience in retail banking leadership. Her last role was in anti-money laundering compliance with one of the top 4 Canadian banks. Hello, Deborah. Thank you for taking the time to speak to us today.
Hi, Slavka. Thank you very much for having me.
The topic of our discussion is how compliance is strengthened by diversity and inclusion. And I'd like to start by asking, what value does D&I bring to companies and their compliance culture?
I think that diversity strengthens the voices of compliance professionals in articulating the message of compliance to rules, regulations and policies. It's not just a tick box exercise. I think it's a matter of looking at different individuals, what they bring, not just by gender or their race or their age, but also things like cognitive diversity, where you have individuals that think differently, analyze differently, think about compliance related issues differently. So I think that's a really important aspect. And also with cognitive diversity, it helps to bring a sense of diversity in terms of buy-in from employees. So when you have a diverse, for instance, you have a diverse compliance team, you have individuals that come from perhaps different business functions or different experiences, and therefore you can gain a bit more buy-in from employees across different business functions. And in my experience, that has been a good tool for me personally, as I've worked in compliance, being able to use my experience, my diverse background in retail banking, and selling the idea of compliance across different business functions.
Absolutely. And why would you say then aren't companies more diverse when the business case in favour of a culture of equality strengthens each year?
It should be a natural topic to talk about because we are all different, outside of our workplace. We're all different. We come from different walks of life, different religions, different backgrounds, different places. So it should be just a natural thing to do. I don't know if it's a case of the status quo, perhaps in-group bias, I'm not sure. But I think when you're looking at diversity, it should be an opportunity to improve the business strategy. So it should be a strategy for business improvement, a way of, if you're diverse, attracting different employees, different customers, different investors. So it is odd, but it's an actual natural thing, I think, to think about when you're thinking about diversity. You want to attract all kinds of different individuals, and therefore your workforce should really reflect that as well, and the communities in which you serve and operate.
Certainly, but as we all know, there's an opportunity to make some progress in this space. And because we're talking about diversity and inclusion in the compliance industry, it'd be interesting to get your take on the role of regulations in driving D&I.
Yeah, I know sometimes that's a bit of a sore subject depending on where you raise the topic. I think that there is a case for example, there's a case for instance, gender quotas, regulating companies so that they meet gender quotas, and it's debatable. Some feel that it's maybe the best way to go about holding companies to account and forcing them to do it. Some individuals think it's a waste of time. You'd be recruiting individuals just based on, again, a tick box exercise rather than on true merit. I do feel, though, that in some respects, until we get some level of, significant equality where we don't have to be raising it every minute, it just becomes natural, that there needs to be some kind of framework of regulation that really does hold individuals to an account. When the regulators go in, they're not just asking about, the facts and the figures, but also they're asking about what they do, what is the company doing to be more equal. Recently, a top CEO for a very large international bank, said that he had trouble filling top leadership spots for ethnic minority groups. And I mean, he later apologized, but the fact of the matter is, to me, the question should be, well, why haven't you? What are your mechanisms? What are your HR practices? Who are the decision makers?
Do you feel that there are any members of the community that are underrepresented in the compliance industry currently?
Yeah, I think from my experience, both attending workshops and just interacting with compliance professionals, both here in the UK and where I worked in the Caribbean for quite some time, where I see the underrepresentation is actually in professional background. So generally speaking, you tend to find individuals from a legal, regulatory background, sometimes audit, sometimes finance. I think where I would like to see a bit more representation is actually from the HR function. Rarely do you go to a course and you hear a chief HR officer presenting. And when you're talking about compliance, you're talking about people doing the right thing. I think, you know, the experts in that, which are the people leaders, the HR professionals, should be really at the forefront of that, holding hands with the compliance heads in that regard.
Absolutely. And equally, what would you say compliance professionals, or all of us as individuals, can do to champion D&I?
Yeah. I mean, I guess like any other area, I mean, you know, depending on where you're living or where you're working, diversity is going to be different. So for instance, I worked in the Caribbean for quite some time. Generally speaking, everybody was either male or female, from African or Indian descent. And then from the UK, where the majority of individuals are white, and the diversity in terms of ethnic and other minority groups is lacking. I think, just like any other initiative, you have to weigh up what it is that you're lacking in. It's really important to do, like for instance, a diversity audit, really see where a company is lacking, where your company is lacking, but then also introduce things like, again, mentorship programs. That's one I would be thinking of. It's an easy one, but a very structured one, not just, again, a tick box exercise. It's just a nice thing to do.
That's some great advice right there. Thank you, Deborah, for being with us today and for sharing your valuable insight on this timely and relevant topic.
Lovely. Thank you very much for having me. It was very much my pleasure.